Okay, we're live. Hi, everybody. James Williams, certified high performance coach or performance coach specialist, as I'm now known. Myself and the amazing Patrick here. I've been going live a few times every week just to discuss some interesting topics, things that we talk about, things that are relevant in our industries. Me as more of a personal development coach, and Patrick more of a fitness health coach. We're going to talk about something really interesting today. But before we do, I'll hand over to Patrick to introduce him.
How you doing, guys? Patrick Mealy here. Yeah, I'm health coach, personal trainer for over 10 years. Also focusing in the personal development realm, but as it pertains to health and fitness, particularly, yeah, working with guys who are divorced, trying to get back in shape, don't know where to turn, and want to build a healthier lifestyle.
So relevant for everything. And we have a very intriguing lower third right now that just says the most expensive loan you'll ever take out. And this isn't about money. This is about time. And we were discussing this morning, what should we talk about? And we've got a little Google Doc and we have ideas. And we realized that one of the things that maybe will stop people from taking action on even the stuff that we talk about is that delay tactic of, do you know what, I'll try it tomorrow or I'll try it next week. And if there's something that we've learned in our lives, I know I speak for myself and for the lives of our clients, is that borrowing time from tomorrow is the most expensive loan you'll ever take out, right? It's that master delay tactic because tomorrow never comes. And, if there's something in your life that you want to change that you're unhappy about, whether it be your health, your career, your confidence, something, why would you live another day like that rather than take action on it? And so we're going to talk about why people delay, some of the shortcomings to that, and actually the lie that it's easier to delay,
Mm-hmm.
because that is a lie, isn't it, Patrick?
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. One of the things that I think we talked about this in another session as well, um, about the idea of, I think we were talking about like kind of self-sabotage, right? Where
Mhm.
it's like you delay why it's the tide of the resistance to change, right? It's like resisting that. There's something keeping us safe, right? There's something keeping us comfortable. So we could tie this back to that topic as well.
Mhm.
But segueing into the idea of procrastination, the problem is, and why it's the most expensive loan is because it keeps compiling and you keep having to pay higher interest, right? So you're essentially, by procrastinating, you ever notice how you put something off, there's always new things that are piling onto your plate, right?
Mhm.
So you have all these loose ends that you're not tying up. And then as time goes on and you procrastinate, you have more loose ends and more loose ends, and that leads to overwhelm.
Yeah.
And overwhelm can just completely shut you down, right? So
Mhm.
you equate that to the topic of the day, what we're calling this, from a financial standpoint, is next thing you know, you're in debt, right?
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you're claiming bankruptcy. So how can we apply that to other areas of our life when it comes to our health and personal development? Is what we're talking about today. Instead of little by little chipping away, taking care of those loose ends now, today, or even better yet, going sliding on the other side of the scale is like, okay, I got this thing planned today. Well, maybe I get this done, and then, I have a little bit more time. Maybe I'll get that thing done that I was going to do tomorrow. And then you start shifting the scale in the other direction,
Mhm.
and you really start taking control of things, and that starts paying you dividends versus you
Mhm.
paying interest. If that makes sense.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think that most people listening will get that, yes, I know what I've got to do, and I know that I'll feel better. And I know this, Patrick and James. I know that the longer I wait, the harder it's going to be to solve. I know this. And we talked last week, why do people dig their heels in? Right. And so I think that it's so interesting. It's so interesting that the idea, and you touched on it, the idea that it's easier for people to stay in this place they don't like but are familiar with than to change their habitual behavior, to have to think
Mhm.
differently. Oh, I'm going to go left rather than right. It seems it's like, oh, I'm just going to stay stuck. And my goal, I'll put my goal in here, see what your goal is for this conversation, is that if we can sell the idea of just for a day, going left rather than right, just for a day, see
Mhm.
what happens if you, as Patrick said, you do one small thing, one small step in the other direction towards the thing that you want, whether it be, I want to eat better today, or I want to sleep better tonight, or I want to feel more gratitude and confidence about myself today. Let's say it's one of those things or something else, and you've been procrastinating on taking the first step. Let's make the goal of this chat for you to just do that today. Just one thing, tiny little step that's so easy that even your procrastinating brain can handle it. Let's
It,
make that the goal. Yeah.
exactly. That's the key right there, is what you said. That was going to be my next point. Is that the problem a lot of people have with this and moving forward is they try to do everything all at once, right? I have 5 different things I want to do. I have all these goals, right? I'm gonna dive in, right? And then inevitably now you have 5 different feelings inside of you pulling you back that are trying to
Mm.
resist that change versus folks focusing on one thing. What's the most important needle mover? I always ask, like, what's the most important thing that you can focus on today or this week that'll move the needle forward in your life? Let's start there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And break that down even further into 5-minute pieces, right? Especially, like, I mean, I'm trying to think of an example of, like, say you're studying for a course, or let's just focus on that, which I'm doing. I'm doing another nutritional certification right now, and there's days where you say, okay, I'm going to carve out 2 hours and I'm just going to get as much done as I can now. Well, sometimes that doesn't happen, and then you end up discouraged, right? When you can't do that larger chunk of time that you want to dedicate to it. So I say, like, start with 5 minutes. Say, I'm okay. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read 2 pages, right? No, usually, I'll tell you what happens. You read 2 pages and you end up reading three, and then you read four, and then you're five, and you actually end up doing more than you originally planned on doing. But just set your goal, set your sights on that small amount, and take action, because you're never going to feel the motivation to do it, right? It's the action that you actually take that gives you the further motivation to keep pressing on. So if
Yeah,
you
because
could,
you're recognizing action, right? And you're also promising yourself something and following through. And this is key, that when it comes to confidence, it's the same with confidence in other people. If a friend of yours promises you something and always follows through on what they promise, you are going to have confidence in them more and trust in them more. It's the same with us. If I say I'm going to do something and I don't do it half the time, I'm not going to have a lot of confidence in myself and following through, which means if I'm setting myself a big goal, I'm probably not going to do it because I'm not going to really trust that I'm going to do it. So, how do you solve that? Patrick just nailed it. It's like, make yourself a promise that you know you'll follow through on. And the other thing you said, which is spot on, is being specific. Rather than I'll get as much done as I can, there's no framework there that your brain knows is successful or not, because I don't know how much that is. If it's like I'm going to read 2 pages, my brain knows that success is 2 pages. And if I
exactly,
read three, I've like gone above and beyond,
well,
which feels great, right? So just like
exactly.
highlighting that there, like how easy is that? Just to sort of say for today, if the goal is for today, let's take a step forward that you're going to actually achieve, and it's in the right direction. Make it achievable. I think it's actually a great delay tactic and a great I'm not going to do anything tactic that people may consciously or unconsciously put in place to set something so big that them not doing it, it's okay because it's so big.
It's very, yeah,
It's
it's
a
very,
cheat code,
yeah,
right? It's like, oh, I'm just so ambitious. I'm going to go for this big thing, and I didn't do it, but it's okay, James, because it was such a big thing.
big
That's
thing.
a great excuse for not taking action.
That's a good one. No, it's so true. So,
you know,
yes. So the point is, it's like, think about what the smallest thing you could possibly set your sights on in your goal for the day, and just shoot for that. Like, what's the smallest thing I can commit to, and build it up from there. So that's
yeah.
a great point. Um,
So another thing I wanted to bring up actually on that, because I can hear some people listen to this and going, but okay, so I'm going to sit and I'm going to decide what the one thing is, and I'm going to think about it, and I'm going to think about it, and I want to tip my hat to Chris Williamson. He has a great podcast, Modern Wisdom, and I was listening to him speaking to another young Brit called George Mack, right? George Mack, young guy, British guy, really smart guy. And they were talking about high agency. And they were talking about this idea of procrastination. And he read out this line. I can't remember where it's from, but it basically said, I realize that I'm overthinking and I'm thinking about how much I'm overthinking. And I think that if I think more about my overthinking, I think that then I will start. So, like, if that's you, if you think, do you know what, I'm going to get off this podcast, I'm going to start thinking about all the things I can do. I'm going to be thinking about what's the perfect thing to do. And then the day will end and I won't have done anything. Another great delay tactic. Bit
Well,
like picking the 2 pages, just pick something. Doesn't have to be the perfect thing.
yeah, and here's the thing: like we're coaches, right? So we're big on asking questions. So I propose instead of maybe even thinking about what can I do, right? Like ask yourself some good questions because the better
Mm-hmm.
questions you ask, the better answers you're going to get. So perhaps one of the questions that pops up for me that I would ask a client in that situation is, where are you feeling the most pain and frustration right now in your life?
Mm,
Right?
right.
There's the goal, because that's telling you exactly like what you need to work on. And that could be a
Exactly.
very easy, very easy answer. Oh, well, like you mentioned before we got on the call, energy. I mean, I just have no energy, right? Um, that's like my biggest frustration. I just don't have the energy to do the things I need to do. Okay, well, that's a start. So you start breaking down the idea of how can I get, how can I start to develop more energy, first of
Well, you
all.
can keep asking why, can't you, Patrick?
Yeah.
So we talked part of the call, everyone, was a lot of people are in the mind, and it's because of the world we live in. They're in the mindset of treating the symptom and not looking at the cause. So I've got low energy. What's the quickest treatment for that? Oh, I'm going to have an energy drink or
Hmm.
a coffee, and I'm going to treat the symptom because quickly I'll have energy. So done. It's a time thing again, right? Whereas
Yep.
if Patrick said you're asking yourself questions, it's like, well, why don't I have energy? Oh, I didn't sleep well last night. Why didn't I sleep well last night? I was up scrolling on my phone all night. Why did that? And you could keep asking why until you're so clear. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, now I know what to do tonight, right?
Exactly.
So now you have an action.
Yeah, that's key, is just like ask yourself these questions, or maybe get a coach to right right to ask you these questions, and hold you accountable to this. That's a huge
Mhm.
value right there. Well, selfless plug for us. No,
Yeah,
but yeah,
but
no,
it's
that's
true. It's the power of asking great questions, and that's why coaches exist, why mentors exist, why sports teams have coaches or mentors, is because in our own minds, if we're stuck in a loop that is not working for us, where we are delaying, we're not taking action, you need something or someone to help get you out of that loop, that destructive loop, because your brain is very clever and tricky and it loves keeping you where you're at, even if where you're at isn't good for you,
exactly.
right? And that counts for us too. Me and Patrick may have some tools to get ourselves out of that, but both of us get coached. Both of us have had people or have people that help us get out of our own loops, right? This isn't ever about being perfect. It's
No,
about
so
trying
true.
to be aware of where am I, where have I got a tape repeating that's not helping me, and how do I swap that tape out for something else?
Yeah,
you
we have
know,
to replace it. Get rid of the old furniture and in with the new furniture. And it's like I said, it's less about giving advice to people than it is asking good questions, so
hmm
that they, most people have the answers within them. They just need
hmm
to be coaxed out, right? That's the most powerful thing, because when you have a revelation or epiphany that comes from within, from a solid question being asked to you, it's like there's nothing that you can't unlearn what you've learned, or you can't be unaware of something
for
now
sure,
so it's a
for
great
sure.
thing. So the other question, while we're on the idea of questions, is I love to ask is, if I don't do this now, how will I feel tomorrow?
Mm.
Try to picture that emotion of what you're going to feel if you don't do it now versus the emotion of what you're going to feel if you do it,
hmm
right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's another powerful one to ask.
Yeah, don't underestimate that, and especially to the guys out there, don't underestimate the power of your emotions and how you feel. Right? I think we're living in a time now where it's actually okay. Right? Guys can talk about emotions. It's okay now. to relax.
Essentially, yeah.
But that's how, if you think about how your brain works, there's a great concept actually in high performance studies called RWID, relative weight of importance and duration. And what that describes is how your brain decides to automate behavior by giving relative weight of importance to a thing, to a thought, right? And repeating it, your brain hardwires it. So that means a relative weight of importance is an emotion. So as Patrick said, how am I going to feel tomorrow if I sleep great? How am I going to feel after a week if every night I've slept great? Well, I can remember a time when I was sleeping great and how energized I felt. So that's something I can grab onto, a feeling. And if I felt like that all week, that's going to feel great. I'm going to be more present with people. I'm going to be more creative, have more ideas. When you've got that hook, when you've got that emotion and you can almost feel it in the moment, you've given it relative weight of importance. Now repeat it every day. How am I going to feel if I do this? How am I going to feel if I do this? If you do that enough, and I'm not going to lie to you, it does take time, but you do
Sure.
that enough, you're going to start figuring a lot of stuff out for yourself, and you're going to start, you know, changing how you think. It's just really important point.
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, and it's just like James said, there is no quick fix. Like, just try to take the idea of quick fixes out of your mind, because they're even if they work in the short term, they're not sustainable, right? So think about, the biggest thing I that helps me, I'll just speak personally, is being intentional. Again, instead of scrolling at night, wasting, which is might help you and might hurt you, most likely hurt you getting a good night's sleep. Like, use that time to plan your next day. Like, so that when you get up, you have an intention, right? And in the morning, like, you have that intention, you have the plan. So you create the little bit of the plan, and then you try to stick to the plan. I mean, that's the idea. If you just wake up and you have no plan, you don't know what you're going to default to the old things that aren't working. So, I highly recommend, a tactic like that.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. Just change it up. Change it
Yeah.
up. What do you think for you? Because I know, like me, your reason for doing what you do is from personal pain, right? It's from what you experienced with your dad, what you didn't want to experience growing up. What is it you think was one of the biggest habitual patterns that you changed that made the biggest difference for you? Just to help people understand, that it's possible.
Um, yeah, from a mental standpoint, what comes to mind right away is the habitual pattern of lying to myself. um,
Right.
like, telling
Mm,
myself that I'm doing, that I'm doing okay, I'm doing fine, I'm doing
mm,
enough good things. But it's like, it's a recognition, right? Recognition that um, there could be something better. But it was really just, there's like multiple answers to that question.
yeah, for sure.
Um, habitual patterns is just, I think we all have a sense of what we're not what we're not doing, like, or what we're doing that's potentially not good for us. I think we
Mm,
do, but we're up against a lot of resistance. It could be um, just like you said, habit, but it could be a lot of times it's social environment is a huge one, right? Like, who are the people you're hanging around? Like, are you used to, like, going out multiple times a week and sipping bourbons with the guys and smoking cigars and going on the golf course? Because that connectivity, that community could be a really hard pull when you feel in your gut that you want to get healthier, you want to feel better, but, like, you're afraid of disrupting that that social environment. That's a big one I see with people I've coached over the years, is not wanting to give that up, right? And I
mm,
do that myself, because, early on, like, it was, after work you go out for a drink with the friends, and you do that, and you get into that lifestyle, and there's some social rewards to that, but then you start to not feel good, and you're like, man, this really isn't sustainable. I need better for myself, and to break free from that is probably, I mean, one of the things that I think it's pretty common. It's a pretty common struggle with a lot of people, and I think it's just breaking that habit, or breaking that pattern and honoring yourself. It's one of the hardest things to do, to be able
Yeah,
to.
do you know what? It can be so lonely, and that's the thing. It's got to be talked about. It can feel very lonely to make a change
It
for
can't.
exactly what you just said. You
So,
know, it's
and that's a big one. That's a big
mm,
one, to be able to, how do I, and the big questions are, and this is where, coaching help, comes in, because I've worked with clients around this a lot to try to get them out of this, where you could still maintain those relationships and those friendships and social environments to a point where you're still honoring yourself, but you're still honoring those. And sometimes it's having conversations with the people around you, your family, your friends. Hey, listen, this is something that's really important to me. I'm trying to get healthier. This is what I'm doing. I know some people might say, "Oh, I don't have." That's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but it may be a necessary one, where
mm,
it's like, well, if you are my friend, if you love me, you're going to support me in this, because this is important to me, even if
mm,
even if it creates a little bit of, disconnect from what we're used to doing. And you know
yeah,
what? There's another part of that. There's the role model part of that too, where it's like, okay, you don't have to go, well, I'm doing this. You don't do it from a self-righteous place. Like, hey, I'm better because I'm going to stop drinking and I'm going to do this and that. And, you should do that too. It's not about trying to get other people to do it. It's just do what is true to you, and just,
yeah,
that's the example you're leading by. You don't have to preach to other people. You don't have to
for sure,
change, change them, because the one thing you don't want to get into is that situation where you are trying to pull them with you in an unnatural way to serve your own
for
agenda. So
sure. What you said is very important. It isn't about being that anyone's better, but it is about you honoring what's true for you. Because I don't think it's fair for those guys or those friends for you to pretend to want to be with them. Like one of the things I heard on this podcast the other day was that I can't remember. There's a word for this theory, and I can't remember what it is, so I apologize. But it's the idea that there's a wedding and the people having the wedding invite you because they think you want to be there, and you go because you think they want you to be there, and actually you don't want to be there and they don't want you there. so
that's a
if
good.
you so if you're living a life where I don't really want to be drinking, I don't really want to be partying, but I feel connected to these guys and they're part of my identity, so I don't really want to be there. They probably sense that I don't want to be there because I don't stay out quite as late and I do this thing. So no one's really, it's not really synergistic. It's not really working, but everyone's kind of pretending it fits.
Mhm.
And then that's why you're unhappy, right? If you're, and listen, both me and Patrick have been in that situation. I grew up in the UK. I was there until I was 40. And even during that time, in my 20s, it was a very different chapter. In my 30s, it was different again. And there are friends that have, even though they've not necessarily done what I've done, we've got enough of a connection that they've stayed my friends. But I've had to let go of a lot of people in my life because they just pulled away from me. Or maybe the more accurate answer is I went over here, they stayed there, and they're happy in their life. I'm happy in my life. But I found it hard. It's like missing a life that I don't want anymore was a weird feeling. It's like I sometimes, even now, I think I miss the days of going out to the pub and having beers with the guys. I miss it, but I don't want it, you
you
know?
miss you miss the feeling it gave you, right? But
Exactly.
it's not about like, you don't have to continue a destructive behavior to
Right.
maintain connection, right? Some people don't get that, right? But if you can get past that, if you can honor yourself, eventually, there's 20 years ago, if you asked me if there's certain friends that I was around that I'd be around forever, if you told me I wasn't really, weren't really going to be connected at some point, I'd be like, you're crazy. What do you
You're
mean?
crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
And now it's like, I realize that was just like, certain people are just meant to be in your life for a certain period of time,
Right.
right?
It's a chapter. Yeah.
And that's okay, right?
Hmm.
But what's not okay is not being true to yourself and not being honest with yourself. Because if you're feeling something that's welling up inside you, right, that's a feeling like you want better, you feel like you want a better life, a healthier life, that wouldn't be put in your conscience if it wasn't a possibility and something you should be moving
For
towards.
sure.
You
For
wouldn't be
sure.
feeling it, you wouldn't be thinking it. So it's very important not to procrastinate.
Well, just it's important to listen to that, right? If it keeps coming up, there's someone in there shouting at you saying, "Hey," and the
Yeah,
louder it shouts, sometimes it shouts so loud it feels stressful. And then initially the push is a nice, "Hey, let's go over here," but then it becomes stress. And then, like we said, the initial investment becomes debt, becomes bankruptcy, becomes this becomes even harder to leave, right? Because the truth is, it takes a lot of energy to make a change that means you're going to separate yourself from familiar situations, even if those familiar situations aren't good for you, right? I know it was for me. When I left, I worked in TV for 12 years. When I left that career, I was so excited for this next chapter. But for that next year, my emotions were up and down because I went from being surrounded by a lot of people. Not a lot of them were necessarily very close friends. A lot of them were really cool people that I hung around with, some very close friends, to suddenly working on my own, or me and my wife were working together, but I was really on my own a lot more. Um, and I found that so hard. And it's
yeah,
weird to feel the pull back to something that you don't really want, but it's familiar. So we're saying this because it's a very natural thing. But what I took from that is that, hey, I don't necessarily want that life anymore, but I want to feel like that again.
yeah. I want the feelings that came along with that, the feelings
Right.
of,
So
of
that just
sad.
means there is a community of people and a lifestyle that will make me feel like that. I just need to figure out what it is. And it's one that allows me to feel the way I want to feel from a health perspective, maybe from a career perspective. It's one that has those elements in it. And maybe it has people in it that also want to feel like that. And yes, it's hard, but everything you've ever done that you've felt great about was hard.
Yeah,
Everything you've ever achieved that you felt great about was hard. Hard is a good thing.
it is. And it's easy. I just wrote a book recently that talked about this, and like everybody's searching for their purpose, right? And this goes along with what we're talking about. Like it's so simple, actually. Everyone's purpose, actually, it's pretty simple. It's how do I become the best version of myself? Like that is your core purpose in life, because everything else flows from that. So when
Hmm.
you're on that crossroads where you're deciding to make this decision or that decision, like we're talking about procrastination, is like, is what I'm about to do or not to do, is it going to make me the best version of myself? Right?
Mm.
Am I going to decide to, I always go back to healthy nutrition, but it's like I'm going to decide to eat that donut, or I'm going to decide to eat that bowl of vegetables or salad or whatever, right? What is going to, if you just can pause and create that little bit of space and ask yourself the question, is what I'm about to do, is what I'm about to say going to make me a better version of myself? And
Hmm.
if you start building that muscle, that will help you. Will if I wait till tomorrow, is that going to make me a better version of myself? Or if I do it today, what it's the answer is simple, right? It's just building that habit. And there's no quick fix. It's you just gotta kind of let yourself do that in the moment.
For sure. But I want to also just remind, even though there isn't a quick fix, it isn't. You can feel the journey moving quickly,
Of
and I'm
course.
saying that to help people motivate the action. Right? That yes, habitual change takes time, and moving out of a situation and an environment, it takes time. But for me, all it took was seeing the little steps, as we talked about earlier, reading those 2 pages and then recognizing, oh, I'm actually a little bit further forward. And that's why when you make major change, really feeling and celebrating every little move forward is crucial, because that's the fuel you need to get through when you freak out and want to go back.
Successful, right? A successful life is really only a whole string of successful days, and a successful day is really only a string of tiny little successful things you did throughout the day,
Yeah,
right?
and loads of failures that you've
Highly
learned from.
failures and learning experiences.
Hmm.
Um, so learning to do that. So, I think we talked about some great stuff today. And you're going to see on these lives that we circle back to other things we've talked about before and how it all ties together. and how it's all, a synergistic effect. But we definitely want to, unless there's any other points you want to make, I'd love to, leave with some good takeaways and maybe some small action steps that people can,
Yeah.
again, one of the things we just talked about, 5 minute rule. What can I commit to for the next 5 minutes? Start there. That's it.
Mhm.
Do anything for 5 minutes.
For
You know,
sure. And I will go back to the idea of intention that you said. And one of the things I do with my clients is I get them to learn to be introspective, which means learn to you know not just think about the outside world, but think about you and how you can, as Patrick said, be the best version of yourself. And that can be as simple as when you start your day, think about, okay, who do I need to be today? What's something that could trip me up today, and how can I be prepared for it? What am I grateful for today? Who needs me at my best today? Things like that. And at the end of the day, instead of scrolling social media, right? Because you've already watched our video by then, remember? You watched it another time of day. At the end of the day, reflect and say, what did I do today where I felt like I really showed up as my best? And maybe what could I have done better today? And if you learn to be introspective and bookend your days like that, you're
yeah,
naturally going to start to be able to think about what it is to be the best version of yourself, how to do it, and you'll feel it, and it'll feel great. So we're doing this because both of us genuinely care about having an impact on people, and I just want people to be happier. The world's has been kind of nuts the last couple of years, and it would be nice if people could be happier, learn to be the best version of themselves so that they can all have a positive impact on those around them. It's really that simple, you know? And so we'd love some questions, just post them. And
questions, the conversation moving.
yeah.
We love this. So, um, yeah, this is great. And then lastly, I'd say environment. Set up your environment for success too.
Mm,
So a lot of times we procrastinate because we're just not set up for success. And a simple example could be like, shooting this video, right? If my desk was piled with stuff and everything that I need to be connected to jump on here with James and do this was not set up, I might procrastinate. Oh, this is a lot of work. I have to clean this up before I do this. So like clean your environment up, whether that's shut your notifications off, whether that's physically cleaning your environment or clearing, your schedule. If there's something you really don't want to be doing or don't need to do, well, maybe cancel it, postpone it,
yeah.
I mean, that's where procrastination can actually come in come in
Yeah,
handy,
yeah, yeah. Just like
you know? And that,
respect the environment that you put yourself in, for sure.
exactly. So try to set yourself up for success that way too. Um, and take it one day at a time.
Bah. And guys, you can see on the ticker at the bottom here, this is where you can get hold of us outside of wherever you're seeing us now. So it's my LinkedIn profile there, just James R.S. Williams. And Patrick's got his Instagram, F3 Health Coaching, which he'll be going live on once we figure out how to do that next
But
time.
but again, we're taking action, right? We're taking imperfect action. This is all about. We don't have this all figured out. We're learning this as we go too, so we can, have this put out live in more places, and hopefully more people can see it and
All
get
right,
value.
guys.
But it's not. We're not letting it stop us.
Exactly. Well, you guys, everyone, have a great day. We'll speak to you soon. Patrick,
All right,
see you later, brother.
hey, everybody. Have a good one.